Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 8th and final MENA Summer Sessions for 2023. This is, of course, our MENA webinar program, and we are in week 2 and day 8 of 8. Hello from Morocco, hello from Egypt, hello to everybody. Thank you for coming along again. Hopefully you've been enjoying all of the webinars up until now. As you can see, we've had loads of stuff going on over the last couple of weeks, all designed to get you guys reflecting on the academic year, everything that we've been doing for our students in the last, I don't know, whatever it is in your calendar, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, depending on when you start, depending on when you finish. I know Egypt's already finished. The Gulf doesn't finish for a few more weeks. But whenever your academic year started and whenever it finished, I hope you've been using these as an opportunity to reflect on your own teaching and the learning that goes on in your classroom, and that you've got some new tips, some new activities that you can take into your next academic year and advance learning in your classroom even more. Of course, this has been brought to you by the MENA PD Academy by Macmillan Education, which is the professional development platform and community for English language teachers in the Middle East. We've seen this guy 8 times now. I don't know how many more times he wants to jump in. He must be exhausted. He's ready for a break for the summer. But we are here to support you guys with advancing learning in the English language classroom across the Middle East and North Africa, which is the MENA region. And we want to improve your teaching skills. We're here all the time with lots of different activities. These webinars, for example, face-to-face events that we're running again now, post-COVID, which is great. I'm looking forward to going to Jordan in August, and September we'll be in Egypt. So lots of cool things to look forward to. So head over to the website, see what we've got going on there. Join us on our social media pages, subscribe to our newsletter, keep up to date with everything that we've got going on. On the homepage, you'll find the report. So these webinars were designed around the report that I wrote weeks ago, based on the surveys that we did with all those teachers in 2022. And if you remember the 3 themes on the first slide, motivation and engagement, productive skills and differentiation, these were the things that you guys told us that you wanted support with this academic year. So that's why we made these webinars. But let's get down to business today. Today, we're going to be looking at writing. So the final webinar is going to be looking at that very difficult productive skill for our students. And we're going to be focusing on teens stroke young adults or adults this evening. And a very warm welcome to Hala, who's joining us, sitting quietly in the background, still waiting for her tea. Are you still waiting for your tea, or did it turn up?
Yeah, I actually have it. It's not tea, it's like Nescafe, my favorite.
Nescafe, very good. I've got my tea here.
Yes.
How are you doing? Oh, you're based in Cairo, right?
Yes, I am for the time being. And I'd like to welcome everybody who's here from different countries. I can see Qatar, Libya, Egypt. I don't know the rest of the countries. There were like many countries. So thank you so much for being here today. And thank you, Nathan, for having me. I'm super excited to start.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, we got Oman as well, Medina.
Yeah, all these great countries.
Yes.
So look at this, everybody from all over the place, all coming together to learn and share and get involved together, which is great. So I'm also going to, at the end, spend about 20 minutes looking at some activities from Skillful 2nd edition, which is a paired skills light academic English book that we have. So that's something to look forward to at the end. Yay, and someone from Brazil. Ooh.
Yes.
Early in the morning in Brazil, very early in the morning.
Oh.
So we're going to look at Skillful 2nd edition. Certificates, as always, they'll come out in the next few weeks. Bear with me, I will get them out. And there will be a virtual goodie bag. I realize that there's 2 slides, one at the end and one at the beginning, and I haven't put the image on the one at the beginning, but there's an image that's supposed to be here. But you'll get a virtual goodie bag as well. And if you wait until the end, you'll see what that is, I guess. So that's it from me as an introduction. Welcome once again. Oh, it's 1 p.m. in Brazil. I can't believe that. It's not so far behind as I thought it would be.
Yes.
So I'm going to pass over to Hala, who's going to walk us through her presentation on writing skills. So let me stop sharing, Hala, and then I will let you share.
Thank you very much. So I assume that you can see my slides, right?
Yes, your slides are there. And oh, you've jumped into the presentation.
It does that all the time. Okay, so
hey,
I assume that
I will leave you to it, Hala. I will disappear in the background. And I'll keep an eye on the chat box. If there's any questions, we can approach them at the end. Or if you're watching the chat, please feel free to answer them as you go as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nathan. All right, dear teachers and educators, how is everything? All good? I can see some familiar names, different countries. I hope that everything is great with you, everybody. Amazing. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you. So again, this is Hala Al-Matary, and I am the academic director / teacher trainer with 4 Skills here in Egypt. Welcome, everybody, and let's get started. So let's start with the session objectives. So by the end of the session, you will be able to identify the stages of product writing with teens and young learners and understand the aim and procedure of each stage, because it's very essential for us as teachers to understand the rationale behind each stage and how it should be done in the classroom. And thirdly, we have to get familiar with some examples with each stage so that you imagine what could happen in the classroom properly. So are you ready? Right. Okay. So before we start planning any writing class, we have to understand the needs of the writing itself. So we have to start with the why. It's very essential. What is the reason for your students to start writing? You have to start having this idea about the reason so that you see if it's applicable to be done in the classroom or not. So we have to start with the why. The second thing would be your audience. What is the audience that you're targeting? Young learners, adults, teenagers, because we have to choose something that would grab their attention, because it differs from one age to another. So for example, it wouldn't be ideal to have a class of young learners and then, or maybe, extremely young learners, and then ask them to write something like the advantages of wasting time, with social media. Would that be interesting in your opinion with young learners? No, it wouldn't. But perhaps if I ask them to have, or maybe write a different ending to a certain story, that would be really interesting with the young learners, right? Stories. Yes, amazing. The third thing that we have to consider when it comes to writing is what type or what is the genre that I'm asking my students to write, because it differs from one lesson to another, from one background to another. And fourthly, that's going to be what is the language that you want your students to produce when they write? Is it formal, informal? So what is the register that you're planning to make your students produce? So again, the needs of writing. So there are, of course, many types of writing that we have to consider as educators. As for today, I will be talking about the product writing, but I wanted to introduce the process writing. Maybe in the future, we will be able to talk about it. But as for today, most of the needed type of writing would be the product writing with the teens and the young adults. And the differences, as you can see, the product writing could be actually finished in one session, and it focuses on the theme and the genre. For example, a complaint email, that's one genre or theme. For example, a product review, that's another theme. But when it comes to the process writing, that's different, because it could take one session or maybe 2-3 sessions to like finish one text. So the stages are like a lot, and they could not, yes, in some cases they wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to finish them in one session. And usually it depends on previous sessions, or maybe the language that you introduced in previous sessions, so that they use the language that was previously taught in the process writing itself. And as you can see, it focuses more on the process of writing itself. Very good. I can see here Huda saying that praising is important. Very good. Yes, with young adults and teenagers, it's essential to praise everybody, even with adults, I believe. Thank you so much for that. All right, so now, as I promised earlier, we're going to go through the stages of the product writing. And something that I always prefer to do is that I show the stage, I show the rationale, or maybe the aim and procedure, and a little example for you to imagine how could this be applied in a real classroom. So let's get started. So whenever you start any session, whether we're talking about a writing session, receptive skills session, vocabulary session, grammar session, it is ideal to start with a little lead-in. And I always call the lead-in, because I'm a very metaphorical person, the little appetizer. So when you go to a restaurant and you want to have a very good meal, it would be better when you start with some delicious appetizers, right? What do you think? Yes, of course. So with the real classroom, it's the same thing. So it's ideal for us to start with maybe a little speaking activity that is related to the theme, instead of asking the students to write right away. So the lead-in, the appetizers, and it depends on the theme. Shireen here, he said they love talking about food. Who wouldn't? So it depends on the session and the genre that we agreed about earlier. So here is an example of a lead-in, because it's very essential for us to get the students' attention at the beginning of the classroom to develop oral fluency. So here's a little example. We can actually show the students questions or pictures related to the topic, and we can put them in pairs or groups. Whether it's a face-to-face class, you can maybe make them sit next to each other in a certain way. Or if it's an online class, you can simply put them in the breakout rooms and in groups or in pairs, and you ask them to talk about something, and we have to make sure that there is a communicative outcome. The clear example here would be, yes, with a friend, look at the newest movie posters and decide which one would you like to watch and why. See if you have the same answers, or see if you have, or maybe you agree on watching the same film. Take 5 minutes, and then you start the lovely ICQs. ICQs, what do they stand for? ICQs. Who can help me? ICQs. So instruction, amazing, very good instruction, checking questions. That's incredible, because it's very essential for us to give clear instructions to the students and make sure that they got them before they start the actual task, whether together in a face-to-face class or in the breakout rooms. So this is a good example, newest movie posters, and you can show them some pictures as we agreed earlier to make it more interesting. So I've chosen some pictures for you. So 65, that's a movie. Mania, Scream. I don't know if you have seen any of these movies or not. And Mummies. So they see 4 or 5 pictures, and they are in the breakout rooms discussing which one they would like to watch and why. And once they're done from the breakout rooms, or done when the time is up, you can ask for content feedback. Perhaps you can nominate some of the students to share what they have agreed about. So for example, Ali, I heard some really interesting answers in the breakout rooms. So, and Ali would say, we didn't agree. I actually chose that because 1, 2, 3, 4, while my friend chose that because of 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would help with the students' engagement, students' talking time. And of course, they would be fully engaged in the classroom with you before they start the actual writing part itself. So here, the content feedback. And remember, the lead-ins should not be in a ping-pong form. So you cannot display the question and ask them directly in the classroom to answer your questions all at once, because that would consume time. And let's imagine that you have 10 students in the breakout rooms or 10 students in the classroom, and you asked the first question to the first student, and the student answered you. Do you expect them to be, or expect them to be listening or maybe waiting for 9 other students to finish their answers? What do you think? So ping pong or in breakout rooms, what do you think? In breakout rooms, because if it's a ping pong, it will waste time. If you have 10, 15 students and you keep asking them, so what's your favorite movie? And he answers you for 3 minutes or 2 minutes. And then you move to another student. What's your favorite movie? So that will, of course, waste some time. And the students will be like, yes, exactly, listening to the other students, and they're actually doing nothing. So it is ideal to put them in the breakout rooms, as Haya Sami suggested, so that they listen to one another with a communicative outcome. And then when they come back to you, you nominate maybe 4 or 5 students to share back what they have discussed, so that, as Hala agreed, everybody has to be engaged. All right, very good. Once the lead-in and the content feedback is over, now it's time for you to set the context to inform the students of the next step, because it's very essential for you to have a very smooth transition moving from one part to another. So it's essential for us to raise the students' awareness about the next step, whether they're going to read something, listen to something, or maybe introduce the people in the text, the context, layout, the genre. And here's a good example. Now we are going to read a movie review together so that you know how you do it on your own. So setting the context is a statement that helps the student know the next step and helps you as a teacher with the smooth transition, moving from one part to another. Very good. Moving to the third stage. So with the product writing, there has to be a model text for the students to read. So that later on they would be able to produce something, following the model text that we agreed about. So do you give like when you have texts for the students to read, is it ideal to make them read with no task or read with a task? What do you think? Okay, I here suggest it has to be with a task. Very good. And I can see that everybody agreed that it has to be with a task and a specific task. Of course, amazing. So it could be either a just or a detail, never both. Because what is the aim again? The aim is not reading, the aim is writing. So you could choose a just or a detailed task. Very good. Amazing. So this is a nice example of a little task. It could be, if it's a face-to-face class, because I assume that some of you teach in an actual class, you can actually give them the handouts to read the questions for 1 minute before they start reading the text. So do you make them read first or read the task first? So either the text reading or the task reading first? Amazing. Read the task, Mariam. That's incredible. So they read the task so that they know what is it exactly they're going to look for. Very good. So again, if it's a face-to-face class, you can, give them the handouts after giving them the instructions and the ICQs, of course. Or if it's an online class, you can actually make them like check this with their camera and go to another lovely website. And I'd like to show you how it's done. The same exact task, but it's, gamified. So they are in breakout rooms, and they are discussing maybe the question. Who plays the main role? Where is the movie set? Or what is the title of the film? So it's an incredible resource to use word wall if you're interested in gamifying your lessons instead of giving them handouts every single time, especially that young adults and teenagers, they are into that. What do you think? Yes, they are into that. So there are a lot of things that we have to consider when it comes to the age. And I believe that you agree with me. Thank you very much. All right. And let's get going. So this is when it comes to the third stage. They read the questions first before they read the actual text. And here is the actual text. And I chose Wonder. Yes, the name of the application is WordWall, Umnia. WordWall.com. It's not an application, it's a website. WordWall.com. And it's an amazing resource for you to gamify the tasks that you show in the classroom. So I chose the text, or I chose the review to be about Wonder. And I believe that you're familiar with that movie. And here is a little review at or on the left side, and some ratings. So they read the text alone, and they answer the questions that we agreed about earlier, whether it's handout or using the website WordWall. So once they're done reading, yes, once they're done reading and once they're done with the task, you can maybe apply think, pair, and share. They answer the questions alone. They pair up to check their answers together, because it's very essential for you to pair your students every now and then, because you have different types of students and learners in the classroom. Maybe there's a shy learner, or maybe there's a less able learner, and he's not sure if the answers are correct or not. So maybe you pair them, or you pair them up with another active student, or the nerd. Of course, you meet a lot of nerds every single day. So maybe you can pair them up, and then we share their answers and content feedback as Mariam suggested. Or what I like to do is, like, I show the answer key right away. It saves a lot of time. Yes. All right, moving to the fourth stage itself, which is focus on the sub-skills of writing, and the useful language students will use in their writing. So perhaps you ask them to go back to the text again and choose the interesting maybe expressions or sentences that they have read in the Wonder text before. And maybe if it's a face-to-face classroom, they can underline the sentences that they find interesting, or perhaps they can send you that in the chat box, whatever that is that makes you feel comfortable in the classroom. Do it, whether it's online or a face-to-face class. So let's assume that one of the learners chose, let's go back to the text. Okay. Chose, I highly recommend watching. This is maybe that was something interesting for them to learn. And you decide to like teach them this useful language so that they can use it comfortably when they start writing and on a personal level. So now you have the underlined sentences, and now it's time for you to teach. So one of the learners said, Hala, I liked, for example, I would highly, or I highly recommend watching da 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 da. So khalas, I know, or that now it's time for me to teach that. So once I elicit the marker sentences, or the language that the students think is interesting, I start my CCQs, the concept checking questions, my favorite. So when I say, dear students, when I say, I highly recommend watching, is it a favorable opinion? What do you think? Is it a favorable opinion? I highly recommend. What do you think? Yes. Yes. Okay. So does it show a nice suggestion from my end? What do you think? Yes or no? Yes. Is it a must to watch the movie? Am I obliging you to watch the movie? No. Amazing, amazing, Ines. No, no. But it's tempting, as Hala suggested. So when the students answer these 3 questions correctly, it means that, oh my God, they understood when to use I highly recommend. And then you move to the form itself. You just show them the form itself and how to use it is that I highly recommend, and then a gerund, which is the word plus ing. So if it's a writing lesson, do I have to highlight the pronunciation, you teachers? What do you think? And why? So I covered the meaning and the CCQs, and then I showed the form. So I went MF. The task is writing, so no. Okay, Hala, thank you. If it's a writing, do I go MPF or MF? Okay, Noha, that's a brilliant answer. So if you find that the word itself is extremely problematic, then maybe you can show the P, but let's be honest here. You know the level of your students, right? And you know what they need, what they're good at, and what they lack. So of course, I'm not going to put an extremely advanced word in the text itself, because I have to consider that the text suits the B1 students, for example. So there's no need to focus on the pronunciation. So you go MF, meaning with the CCQs and the form, because again, it's a writing task. Very good. So here they learn some language, like they learn some marker sentences or some useful language from the previous text that we showed earlier, so that later on, when it's writing time, they have something in mind to write or maybe use in the text itself. So MF, dear teachers, there is no need for the P, sorry. Now moving to the brainstorming and preparation for writing, and I believe that one of the teachers in the chat box earlier wrote that brainstorming is very, very essential. How would the brainstorming part help you with the students? When you brainstorm together, how does it help with the production? Okay, good with the ideas, brilliant. Very good, and it would help the less able learners effectively, Omia. Organize the thoughts. Yes, thank you so much, Nathan. So you have to give your students the tool or the tools to start writing. You know, you do not expect them, for example, to drive the car with no gas. So the brainstorming and the useful language is like the gas. Again, I'm a very metaphorical person. Exactly, it saves a lot of time. Dig deeper into those ideas. That's brilliant. So we have to generate ideas and help students to prepare to write. And I always prefer that you ask them to do that in pairs or alone, preferably. Because by the end, each one of the students would be producing one text each. So if you have 10 students, you should be expecting 10 texts. Yes, the low achievers, Yasir, I hope that I said your name correctly. And Noha here said it encourages them to recognize the fact that they hold necessary tools within their mind and use language as a way to present these ideas. Brilliant, Ms. Noha, thank you so much. All right, so let's get going. So now it's the writing stage itself, and it could be one draft, it could be done in one draft, but if you know that your students need another draft, because you're the one who actually is fully aware of the students' abilities, your time management, for example, the number of students you have. So if you notice that they are maybe less able learners and they need more than one draft, because that's going to be like the best production, you can go with 2 drafts. But if they're like fast learners and they can do it, you know, with only one draft, just go with it. Again, you're the boss of your own classroom and you understand the needs of your students best. Of course, once the students start writing, you have to start circulating the class. If it's a face-to-face class, maybe some of them actually need your help. Maybe some of them are like gossiping and you want to end that, because sometimes you have students who like to talk and check the phones. So it's really necessary for you to monitor, to guide, help, and maybe give language feedback when you maybe read some sentences and you notice a grammatical mistake or a spelling mistake. Maybe you can give them feedback while they're writing to help them, you know, with the writing task itself. And again, it's preferable that the students do that alone for better production. So that's the writing stage itself. Once the students are done with the writing part, it's time for content feedback, right? So here, the content feedback, again, if it's a face-to-face class, the content feedback could be that you hang the reviews on the walls of the classroom, or maybe you can screen them with the learners so that they read them and maybe vote for the best one, or perhaps comment on each other's language and say, okay, here my friend made a spelling mistake. I think he forgot verb to be. I think there's an S that's missing. So even in the language feedback, you push the task back to your students. Make them correct themselves. That's absolutely fine. So again, if it's a face-to-face class, it could be a gallery walk. You hang the reviews on the wall and you make them circulate the class in order to maybe vote for the best one, or maybe cover the language part or the language feedback part that we agreed about as students. Then it's your turn as a teacher to highlight the language mistakes or maybe errors that were written down. And what I like to do with my learners is that I show them the correct sentences that they have written down, because I want to encourage them. I want to praise them, as one of the lovely teachers suggested earlier, because some teachers, they forget and they just show the mistakes every single time with no correct sentences. So what is the disadvantage, or what are the disadvantages of showing the mistakes the whole time? Mistakes only. What do you think? Okay. Yes, there will be no motivation, of course, no self-esteem, and not all the mistakes, only the necessary ones, Shireen. I totally agree with you, especially if it has something to do with the theme itself, or maybe the useful language that they have learned, but not every single mistake. And yeah, I like that. Soul destroying, yes, of course. So yeah, they will get frustrated. And Hala, every single time she shows the mistakes only, she never talks about the good language that we produce. That's incredible. So you can show them the correct, or the correct sentences that they have produced. And the one in the middle would be for the slips, and you can invite them in pairs in the breakout rooms to go back to the breakout rooms and correct them together. And then they come back to you with the correction. And if they were unable to identify one mistake or two mistakes, it's okay for you to highlight that for your students. Okay, Hala here saying, sometimes some students keep asking about certain words in their mother language. Is it okay to resort to the translation, or is there another method? Okay, that's a good question, Hala. Thank you so much for asking. So translation is one of the ways, to be honest with you, but it comes at the bottom, Hala. Okay, so and naturally, the students at the beginning of any course would be reluctant to the idea of receiving the information the whole time in English. So they might pause you or show like they're frustrated because they want you to translate the words for them. But again, you're the boss of your own class. If one method didn't work, maybe the picture was unclear, you put the word in a context, or maybe you use realia, maybe you show them the object itself, or maybe you show them or try to elicit an easier synonym. But using the first language isn't ideal because it's going to be a lifestyle. Every single time they have a problem understanding a word, they will ask you to translate the meaning, and translating the meaning wouldn't help them with the language acquisition as we expect. And as you can see here, there's a third emoji that's celebrating. This could be new language, or maybe new information. And for example, you notice that they use the word hungry, for example. The word hungry, they use it a lot of like a lot of time. They use it with their writing. But you have a new advanced word that can upgrade the language. Why wouldn't you teach them famished? It's an adjective and it means hungry and it's something new. So they would feel that, oh, we managed to learn some useful language in the text. We were able to identify the good sentences that we have written down, and we managed to correct our own mistakes. And finally, the teacher added some new useful language, even by the end of the session. So again, show the correct sentences, show the incorrect sentences, and invite your students to correct them in pairs or groups. And finally, you can add to the knowledge or add to the language that they have by adding some useful language. Okay, and that would be it. I'd like to thank everybody, and it's your questions time.
Hi, Hala, how you doing?
Good, how about you?
Good, thank you so much for this really useful session, going through all of these different aspects that contribute to not just improving their writing, but improving their approach to writing, their confidence in writing. Some really interesting things. Some people are saying thank you in the chat box. I can see, I was trying to see if there was any final questions, because I know you addressed most of them as you were going through. So there aren't really any questions for us at the end. I was trying to think if I had anything. What did I have? I wrote down some notes as well.
Okay.
I love word wall. It's such a nice, easy application for teachers to use. There are so many applications that help teachers in different ways. So, you know, you can assess through Kahoot, you know, using quizzes.
Yeah.
But there's not that many that help us to introduce tasks. So I think word wall is a really nice one for introducing the tasks in a fun and engaging way. There's lots of things to do the tasks, lots of apps to do tasks, but none that actually introduce them, I think. So that's nice. So hopefully people can go away and practice with that one. I love all that stuff around using the photos. Lots of stuff there around choice, giving students choice in the classroom, which is a really important part of their learning. And actually, because earlier in the week, we did some stuff around differentiation. And if you think about it, there's loads of different ways that you can differentiate that content. So for example, if you was to put those 5 pictures around the room, that students could choose the one that's their favorite and then join that group. And then that group works together because it's all their favorite. And then they could do certain tasks around that. Or you could put them in groups like you did and then have them choose one from within that group. So you could differentiate it in that way, get different students in different types of groups and doing different things. They could rank them from 1-star to 5-star. So you've got negotiation skills going on. And again, lots of language there, you know, while they're practicing those different types of skills, which is not always easy to do when you're teaching. If you're just teaching language, the same thing to all the students, it's hard to get them to negotiate because they're just following your instructions. First, you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and this is your outcome. But actually, in this way, we're really getting them to collaborate and work together and have to talk that through. And then if they share that back with the class, they've got to be thinking, how's the class are they going to agree? You can have like little votes going on. And then you'll find, especially with like teens, older teens, they get really into it and they're like, no, I would never give that a 1-star. That's definitely the best one. Why did you choose that as the lowest one?
Exactly.
It's definitely the best one. Exactly. Start debating, then more language will come out and they really get into it. So yeah, really nice ways to differentiate out those activities. And it all feeds in, like you say, to those ideas. They're practicing, they're involved. You've got that hook. So now, okay, right, you're going to choose one. Let's look at the steps. Really nice. Okay, so without, I'm going to move on a little bit. So Hala, if you'd like to stop screen
Oh,
share,
sure.
I will bring mine back up. No, it's fine. Thank you so much. If anybody else has any questions, Hala will probably be hanging out in the chat box. So, and I've seen some more people have said some things here, but rather than me go through it, I'll let you read them. And if you want to address any of them, you can.
Yes. Let's see. Thank you so much, Shireen. Thank you so much. And here,
Padlet.
yes, like you're suggesting that Padlet is good for writing as well. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people are thanking us. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay, so I think my session, which will be slightly shorter, but I think will probably mirror Hala's session a lot. I think you're going to see, because as I was watching there, I was thinking, oh, this is very, very similar to some of the things that I'm going to say. But I think that's a good reinforcement. But I wanted to use one of the Macmillan courses to show you some of these things in action and give you some, again, more new ideas for helping that content jump off the page, get your students engaged, get them active. Hala already mentioned, get them off their chairs, walking around the room, make them do surveys, make them ask each other questions, this type of thing. So here I've got a writing task. It comes from one of the books. It says, from the moment you get up until the time you go to bed, there are many things you can do to look after the environment. So is it appropriate for me to go into my class on day one of this unit and say, you're going to be doing a writing task today. Here's the statement, and I want you to do this particular task. I haven't given you the task. I think this was supposed to have an animation. It's popped up with a big X on there, so it might be a bit big reveal getaway there. Would you, it would be very confusing for students. Would they be able to do the writing task? Probably not. Could I do this activity with them? I certainly could do. And in the past, I actually probably have done. If I'm doing a TTT style unit, I might want to set them this writing task to see what they actually can do. I don't want to assume that all 45 students in my classroom cannot do the task. I might want to see where they actually are. So I might just set this and give them no help whatsoever. They'll probably struggle. They'll probably hate me, but at least it'll give me some insight into what they actually can do with no support from me. The problem is if I don't do that, is that I actually make some assumptions about my students, and I don't want to do that. I'm not encouraging you all the time to just give them random writing tasks, but there can be some value in giving them some writing tasks to see what it is that they can actually do. But of course, we don't really want to do this. As Hala was saying, we want to support them and we want to scaffold them through the process. So I guess there's going to be a little bit of a test here, but you'll probably be able to answer many of these from the presentation that we just watched. So I'm going to scaffold with these individual steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last one you can probably guess is going to be the writing task itself. But the first one, brainstorming. Yeah, okay, let's see whether you're right. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to use a video. So we're going to introduce content to them before we get them to brainstorm. Let me show you an example of that. Before I watch the video, I'm going to do some tasks with them. So in Skillful, it always uses an infographic at the beginning of a unit to get students engaged with a particular topic. This one is to do with global politeness. So time politeness, let's ask this question. What is time politeness like in your country? Let's see if it's actually different across MENA. I'm sure it will be. In the UK, global politeness, do people turn up to meetings on time in the UK? I think they probably do. I think they're quite polite in the UK. But they don't like to make eye contact during conversation. Didn't know that. That's something I've just learned. Never really experienced that in the UK. But let's see, in your country, what's the attitude to time? Are people always on time? Are people always late? Is it acceptable to be late to different things? When I was growing up, it was not acceptable to be late for dinner. My mum hated it if we came late for dinner. I used to get grounded pretty regularly for turning up late for the evening meal. So let's see. Anybody? People are always late in Egypt, but it's acceptable. Okay, good. But not with parents. Okay, so it depends on the social circumstances, whether you're allowed to be late or not. Syria people are on time and they do not accept. Okay, interesting. Good. So we get our students to think about the topic in their own context. And we do that through very familiar things like time, things like meals, get students talking about food. They love to talk about food. And some general cultural conversations, but we keep it pretty light. But we've given them some global exposure here. So we were doing global skills yesterday. So they can start to see that approaches to this are different in different parts of the world, and they can have a nice little conversation about that. And they've got some tasks there to do. But I think we see a lot of infographics. So this is very student friendly. I think they're used to seeing infographics on a pretty daily basis these days on the internet. So it's an easy medium for them to engage with. Okay, so the infographic is just there to set up the video itself. It gives them, as Hala said, it gives you like a little sweetener at the beginning. It gives you that appetizer for the video itself. The video itself has 3 different tasks. So they have to do a task before they watch. We want to be thinking about prediction skills because they're a useful skill to learn. There are tasks for them to do while they're watching. So they have to be paying attention for certain types of information. And again, that mirrors the types of things they're going to need to do in the receptive skills. So what exactly is it you're looking for? You can't take in everything. Are you looking for specific bits of information? And then they have to do collaborative activities after they've watched the video. So they've got before. So with this one, they're working with a partner again. So it's not just them doing it by themselves. They think about these things. So they use that infographic, then they think about it in their own context, and then they watch the video. While they're watching the video, they have some questions to answer. Here they are. And at the end, they again, with their partner, they reflect on the things that they were talking about at the beginning. The video is embedded into the course, so you don't need to find it. Everything is there ready for you to use. You just follow the instructions and go through it with the students. Nice and easy. Okay, so we've done this video. We've set the scene. We've got them thinking about the topic. What would be the next thing that we need to introduce? What will come after this? I think somebody got it in the first one, right? It would be, of course, we're going to do some reading with them. We're going to give them some inputs. So, of course, they have their reading tasks to do. And we're focusing on these receptive skills. If you were with me last week, I said that the best way to improve your writing is not to do more writing, it's actually to do more reading. Reading feeds into your writing considerably. There's a lot of research behind that. So we want them to engage with this, with the receptive skills part first. Now, in Skillful, you get 2 texts in every unit, which is great. If you remember the differentiation session that we ran, it's great that you have 2 different texts on the same topic because it allows you to give students different things to do and then to be able to share with each other based on what they've read. Also, if you remember from the differentiation, most of the texts are broken into chunks like these. So you have 1 to 5. So you could, again, differentiate, put them in groups of 5 and give each student in that group 1 section each that they have to focus on. And then they work together to write the answers. Again, that forces students to work together, but it also forces stronger and weaker students to support each other. Because if one of the weaker students has number 3, for example, the other students won't be able to complete their task without supporting that student to be able to engage with the types of questions that they need to answer as a group. Or you could split the class in half and give them 2 different texts and then have them create questions for the other group, these types of things. So there's different ways we can differentiate this. Of course, with reading, we've got, as Hala mentioned, you've got 3 stages. So we have activities before you read, which are practicing certain sub-skills. And these are all global readings. So again, like the infographic, it's exposing them to academic content from different parts of the world, giving them lots of different ideas. But you've got lots of different types of texts. And as you can see, there's lots of different ways that we could differentiate this out. I put that as a question, but we can skip that one in the interest of time. So, okay, so we've given them loads of input so far. What might be next? They've been thinking about this particular topic. They've had lots of input. They've had lots of pair discussions. They've done things in groups. What might be next? What do we need to give them? You really want brainstorming on there. Let's see. I've put 2 on here. I've lumped these together. They need some language, of course. Yeah. And there it says they need vocabulary and grammar. So they're going to need to be practicing vocabulary and grammar that's going to help them with their own final writing. And we can provide a model. Sometimes the reading itself can be a model, but we might want to give them a separate model as well. And Skillful does give them separate models for their writing that they have to then analyze. So if we look, we've got grammar that they will need to use in the type of writing that they're going to produce, but they also have an analysis of a writing model. So they go through and they can analyze it out. And again, we're moving, if we think about Bloom's taxonomy, we're moving them up that scale. We don't want them to just remember. What we're trying to say to our students is, I'm not asking you to just remember certain parts of vocabulary from the video or from the reading and then try to use that in your writing. I want them to be able to analyze language and think about how and where they're going to use it. So we're now starting to focus on the productive skill. All of the receptive skills have been practiced. We've got all of those ideas being generated. We'll share the slides, don't worry about that. And the analysis of the model text scaffolds out their final writing task because they're really seeing, okay, this is the kind of thing that I'm going to need to produce. And I'm not just replicating it, because students will naturally want to do that. They will naturally want to just rewrite the same thing, but with different words. But actually, we want them to analyze it. So we're breaking it down for them even further, which is even more support and scaffolding for them. And as we mentioned, we're going to practice the grammar with them as well, but it's linked to their writing. So now they've had loads of input. They've got lots of ideas. They've got some language that they can use. They've got a model that they can use. Are we ready to write yet? Or is there more that we can do? One more thing that we can do before they actually do their writing? An outline, a draft. It's not either of these things, actually. There's one thing we can do before. The draft is part of the writing task. The outline probably as well is part of the writing task. They haven't got that writing task. Remember I shared with you at the beginning? They haven't got a pre-task. Yes, we're going to do a pre-task. We're going to do writing skills input. So there's a lot of skills and sub-skills involved in the actual act of writing itself. So we want them to be able to practice those skills. So we've got ideas, we've got language, we've got a model. Okay, how am I going to bridge the gap between all of that stuff and an actual piece of writing? They need to think about writing skills. So for example, this one is around cause and effect. So we scaffold out a particular skill in each unit. So each one, they're building up these strategies to be able to approach their actual formal writing task at the end. So this one, they're looking at cause and effect. And there's lots of different types of sub-skills that you'll see as you go through the units. Need to click back on here. And then we come finally to the final writing task. And it's not, as I gave in the beginning, okay, here's the task, sit down for 20 minutes in silence and get on with it. No, we still want to support them. We still want to scaffold out that process. So it's still got a process approach. So you have the task. This one is, why do people live and work in extreme places? And they then brainstorm all of these things that you've already mentioned. So first they'll need to brainstorm. So we've turned writing at the very beginning into a kind of collaborative task. There was lots of working together, getting in groups, sharing ideas, even all those other language and skills can be collaborative activities. And now we're bringing that down, okay, to the student. Okay, we've done all of this stuff. You should be well prepared. Okay, now we're going to brainstorm, then we're going to plan it out, and then you're going to write. And then we've got some important other things that we want them to do. When they produce a piece of writing, we want them to share it. So Hala was talking at the very beginning about audience. So if you need to get other people to read it and give you feedback, students can do that together. And they can come up with certain questions. You could create rubrics with them, make that a collaborative task with your students as well. Ask them what they think they should be focusing on. And then they can work together. And then perhaps they can rewrite it, do the edits based on what their peers have given them advice with. And this, when people were saying about mistakes, you can do a lot of peer review. So get them to not just look for mistakes, but suggestions for ways to improve. So you can do things like, okay, in groups of 5, you're going to pass each person's piece of work around. So it'll go around for 5 people. And each person needs to find a way to improve that piece of writing. And then when it gets back to you, you've got 5 ideas for improving your writing. That's come from your peers, not the teacher. So they can look for different ways. It could be something to do with language. And again, if you create the rubrics, you can use things like the IELTS rubrics. So find one thing that is about task achievement. Has it answered the question, or is it drifted off topic? How could they get back on topic? Or is it something to do with language? Could they use better lexis? Have they used the grammar correctly? Are there any grammar mistakes that you could circle that they could look at or improve? These types of things. Get your students to do that together in that kind of share part. Then they can rewrite, they can edit, and again, they could have another round of resharing. You can do as many as you like, depending on how much time you have. And then another important part is we want to get them to review. So we want to build these autonomous learning skills. So being able to review what you've done, think about it, think about that unit, which parts were you good at, which parts were you not so good at, what would you like to improve in the future? All of these things are at the end of the unit to help students. Okay, when I go to the next unit, what am I going to be focusing on? I was really good at all of the initial activities, but I struggle with the writing skills. So I'm going to put some extra effort into the next unit on whatever writing sub-skill that is, not just the one in that unit, but the one from the unit before as well. Can I re-practice that skill if I think I'm not very good at it? And this helps students to develop those autonomous skills. This is in the way. Move you. So you've got your final productive task. You've got a very much a process approach. And you've got a review section at the end as well. So as you can see, the unit takes them step by step, holds their hand, gives them all the support they need, lets them collaborate, gets them thinking, gets them sharing, lots of things for them to do. And by the time they get to that end piece, that final piece of writing, you've given them everything. And they've given each other everything that they need, hopefully, to be able to produce really nice pieces of text. So that's it from me. A quick, very quick run through of Skillful 2nd edition and what you would see in the reading and writing. So it's a paired skills course. So if you choose one particular side of the course, you will get just reading and writing. The other is speaking and listening. And the receptive productive skills are designed to work together. Let me bring back up. I can see the Q&A. Let's see. Why is little concern often given to reading in presentations about writing? I'm not sure, but I think that the reading really, really does help the students because it's giving them the ideas, right? They can see language in action, get ideas for how to structure out the writing, but also be thinking about the language itself. Yeah, and it can be very difficult, I think, for lots of students because if there's not a habit of reading in a particular culture, that can not help. And they might not be writing. I mean, at the end of the day, we do write a lot less now than we used to. I don't pick up a pen very often at all anymore. So I can see why for students, it can be very difficult. We didn't mention in this that there are plenty of digital tools, I think, as well, to help students practice out writing. And some of those things can improve their writing, even if they're not using a pen and a paper, I think. It does, yes. Listening leads to speaking. Speaking helps your writing. Reading will help your writing. Okay, great. So thank you so much, everybody. Good. I'm glad you find it all nice and integrated. Let me welcome Hala back. I've moved all my screens around, so everybody's all over the place now. Hala, any final comments from you?
No, actually, that was great. It actually completed what I was talking earlier, and I like the fact that you have spoken about the process writing as well as you suggested. That was really nice, and you have shared amazing ideas to help the students write properly, to help them with the tools that they need to write. And I really enjoyed the questions that I read from the teachers. It means that they want to develop themselves and they want what's best for their students. So thank you so much, Nathan, and thank you so much to you teachers.
Yes, exactly. Rabian, in terms of your question in the Q&A, it really depends. I mean, it depends mostly on how much time you have, I think. It's a difficult one. It will come down to your curriculum, what other objectives you need to succeed in. So if you're only doing a writing class, then all of your time is focused on that improvement. But if you're teaching all 4 skills, and depending on the level of the students, will depend on how much a writing class, how much time I want to give to it. But whatever you're doing with writing, try to make sure that it's scaffolded for the students, and that even if it's a very simple process, so even if I didn't do all of that stuff at the beginning, rather than just giving them writing activities to do or worksheets, structure it out for them so that it's easier for them to be able to engage step by step. They build up the writing rather than feel, I think, as we were mentioning before, writing can feel like a very overwhelming task for students. So our aim is to break it down as much as possible and say, okay, well, if you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, those 3 things will help you build up those skills to be able to produce something, you know. Okay, as mentioned before, certificates will go out just as we wrap up. They'll go out in a few weeks. This one probably won't go out until I come back from leave now. So it'll probably be in about 3 weeks' time by the time I come back, because I'm going away for a little time. Much needed break after all of this work, this busy period. And we will send out a goodie bag as well. There's a new guide to teacher development that we can send out to you, which has got loads and loads of links and content in there from the Macmillan Education team. And that's it. I will leave you with the QR code for the websites. Hala, thank you so much once again for joining us this evening. It was a fantastic session, and we really enjoyed learning some things about writing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I wanted to add some little exploding fireworks, like one of those little transparent GIFs over the top of this, but it didn't work. So you're going to have to use your imagination. You can close your eyes and you can imagine some fireworks going off, because of course this brings us to a close of the MENA Summer Sessions for this year. But we will be back with some back to school online sessions in September. I, as mentioned, will be out in the markets through August and September. And then we will probably put together a similar program in the late fall, early winter. I was thinking about calling them the winter webinars. Maybe that will be a nice one. and we'll put together another program. And of course, we have the Global Teachers Festival in February as well. So we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. From me, I would like to wish you all the very best summer. Hopefully you get to enjoy some time with family. Hopefully you get to perhaps travel a little bit. Hopefully you don't roast in the MENA sun, because that's what we're all trying to escape, let's face it. Maybe go and see some snow somewhere in the world. And we'll look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Connect with me, connect with Hala online. We're both on LinkedIn, so you can keep up with what we're doing. And yeah, that's it. We will see you again very, very soon. Take care, everybody, and enjoy your summers. Thanks, Hala.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.